Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith, and today I am talking about. Here we go. Big Trouble in Little China, illustrated novel, Big Trouble in Mother Russia, by Matthew J. Elliot, with illustrations by Elena Casagrande. That is a long title, and in my little notebook where I write down everything that I read, I only put down Big Trouble in Mother Russia, but the copyright page has this whole thing. This is from Boom Studios, and it is a novel sequel to the movie Big Trouble in Little China. Now, just in case there's somebody watching this who is not familiar with Big Trouble in Little China, it's a movie made by John Carpenter, starring Kurt Russell as Jack Burton, who's a truck driver. He's in Chinatown in San Francisco. He gets involved in some mystical mayhem and trying to save his friends, possibly even saving the world. That's the quickest little nutshell, because we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about this. So this book takes place shortly after the events of the movie Big Trouble in Little China. Jack Burton is driving his truck, the Pork Chop Express. He has a very strange passenger with him, and he's wants to get rid of his strange passenger. So he calls up his old friend Egg Shen, another character from Big Trouble in Little China, the Chinese sorcerer and tour bus driver. And Egg Shen has a job for him. He wants him to pick up a crate, deliver it somewhere. Spoilery, there's a bit of miscommunication, and so things go off the rails. And, Jack's going to end up in Russia. That's the nutshell. For the too long didn't watch folks, I gave this 4 out of 5, or did I? Maybe I only gave it 3. It's 3.5. Now I can't remember exactly what rating I gave it on IMDb, but it's a 3.5. So, I'm a huge fan of Big Trouble in Little China. I've watched the movie many, many times. I think it's fantastic. Great writing and direction from John Carpenter. Great acting from Kurt Russell, Kim Cattrall, everybody else that's in the movie. One of my favorites. So I was excited to read the continuing adventures of Jack Burton. And I think the author captures the essence of the characters, and the movie possibly goes a little bit too far. So, as I said, Jack ends up taking a job from Egg Shen, but things go wrong because of some miscommunication, for lack of a better way to put it. And Jack and his buddy Wang end up in Russia. He's still got people from the original movie trying to kill him. Now he's dealing with Russians, and Gracie Law, who was played by Kim Cattrall in the movie, she's in Russia as well, doing something, working for Egg Shen. And there's more mysticism and mayhem and monsters and basically everything you loved about Big Trouble in Little China turned up a notch. So Jack Burton, a very overconfident fellow, and that's played up quite a bit in this story. He reminds me a bit of Ashley J. Williams from, in this particular instance, Army of Darkness. I haven't seen the Ash versus the Evil Dead TV show, so for me, Army of Darkness is prime, cocky Ash. And Jack Burton has that feeling. He's very cocky, but hasn't necessarily earned it. He's very pro-American. This does take place in the 80s, and he's very gung-ho American. He's very upset about being in Russia and just being out of the country. There's no reason to leave America. It's the greatest place on earth. And it's very, very meta. the story. There's a lot of meta things, and I'll give you an example of a thing that I had to look up. I figured it was a reference to something, but I wasn't sure, so I looked it up, and I don't think a lot of people watching this are going to know it. If you're familiar with what I'm about to say, or after I've said it, don't try to read my mind. Let me know in the comments below if you know what I'm talking about. But in the story, there's a scene with an Elvis impersonator and Jack Burton, played by Kurt Russell in the movie, Jack Burton runs past this Elvis impersonator, and the Elvis impersonator says, "Hey, you look a lot like that kid that kicked me in the shin at the World's Fair." So I looked this up, and when Elvis was 27 years old, he made a movie called It Happened at the World's Fair. It was the big screen debut of a 10-year-old Kurt Russell, who indeed kicks Elvis in the shin. So that's the kind of meta content that you have in here. And for a little extra trivia, Elvis was 27 when he made It Happened at the World's Fair, which introduced the world to Kurt Russell on the big screen. Kurt Russell was 27 years old when he played Elvis in the made-for-TV movie directed by John Carpenter. All comes around. But anyway, that's just an example of the sort of meta humor that's in here. There's plenty more, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone who happens to decide to read this. So it's, as I said, it absolutely captures the essence of Big Trouble in Little China, with Jack Burton sort of narrating things into his CB radio as he's long haul trucking, getting caught up in things that are way above his head, but just full of bullheaded confidence no matter what the situation, and bringing Wang along for the ride, and verbally sparring with Gracie Law. There's a bit of a spark there, maybe. Could there be romance? Who knows? There are new enemies and old enemies and new mystical supernatural horrors and some old mystical supernatural horrors all thrown in to a rollicking adventure that, again, may go just a bit too far. I would compare it to my feelings on the first two Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I haven't seen the third one yet. But I absolutely love the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Not going to go into what it is in case there's anyone who doesn't know. You'll have to look it up. But great Marvel Comics movie directed by James Gunn. I don't like the second one as much because there were a couple of aspects of the first movie I think that people absolutely loved. 2 or 3 aspects that one could say were the most popular parts of those movies. And it seems to me that James Gunn saw that and decided to take those 2 or 3 aspects and just crank them up past 11 to 15. And I think it went a bit too far, at least for my taste. It was great in the amount that was put into the first movie. It was too much in the second movie. I enjoy the second movie, but not as much as the first. And that's how I will compare this to the movie, Big Trouble in Little China. Just a little bit pushing some of the things a little too far. There is another book. I have it on the shelf right over there. We'll see if it follows the same trend when I eventually get to it, or if maybe he tones it down a little. We'll see. I won't know until I read it. But as I said, 3.5 stars. I don't remember if I left it at 3 or bumped it up to 4 on Goodreads. If you're a fan of Big Trouble in Little China, I think you're going to enjoy this book. There's also a ton of comic books. I haven't read any of those. But I do have these 2 novels, and maybe I'll get to the comics eventually. So that's Big Trouble in Little China, illustrated novel, Big Trouble in Mother Russia, by Matthew J. Elliot, with illustrations by Elena Casagrande. Great illustrations, by the way. Maybe I should bump it up to a 4 just for the illustrations, because they're really, really good. There you go. My question for this video, are you a fan of Big Trouble in Little China? Simple enough question. Have you seen it? What do you think of it? As I mentioned, I'm a huge, huge fan. I believe I saw it in the theater. I own a Scream Factory or Shout Factory, I think, copy of it. Tons of special features and stuff. Absolutely love that movie. One of my favorite John Carpenter movies. Possibly my favorite of his non-horror movies. Man, it's a toss-up between that and Escape from New York. But yeah, I was very excited to find these novels. And as I said, I'll eventually get into the comic books, I think. If, I have so much that I haven't read yet. But I would like to read more about Jack Burton. There's even a comic where he crosses over with Snake Plissken, also played by Kurt Russell. What about you? Do you like Big Trouble in Little China? I think some people think it's a little too goofy. I like it. I think it's a perfect balance of action, character, goofiness. It's fantastic. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. And if you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, fuzzy animals, is EricSmith5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH5757. And on Blue Sky, I am @ELSmith. That's all I've got for you. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith. And until next time, read more books.